Now I want to move on to just some basic concepts about stopping drinking alcohol, the simplicity of stopping and the reality of change. I think these two are important concepts to understand. First of all, within the simplicity of stopping, when you make that decision, to either stop or to not stop, it's just a simple decision. It's a binary decision. You either drink or you don't drink. It's a yes or no. Moderation is a vote for yes, right? It's a vote for more time wasting, for more anxiety and conflict. It's a vote for growing more subconscious anxiety over the years, right? So, when you continue to drink, you're continuing to feed this internal conflict, this internal anxiety. I really hope that I've got this across over the last few videos, that you're not going to be able to escape this. What you're feeling now, why you've come here, why you're listening to me at all, is because you have a certain amount of, there's a pain there. And if you've tried the moderation over and over, as we've talked about in the last video, then you understand this conflict. Maybe you haven't put it into those words yet, but you do understand that there is a conflict, that there is an underlying anxiety that's going on beneath the surface. So if you choose yes, if you choose moderation, or if you choose to carry on drinking, then you're going to not only keep this conflict alive, but you're going to feed it, right? When you say no, when you say, right, I'm no longer going to drink alcohol anymore, that is the war over. It's the whole thing over, right? You release that conflict, you release that particular anxiety within yourself. And this is a foundational thing. It's something that I never understood all the time that I was trying to moderate my drinking and keep that lifestyle going, keep that inner part of myself going. Do you understand? This is something that I was battling for a long time, with trying to keep that part of myself going. I mean, I always saw myself as a drinker. That was a part of my core identity as a human being, as a man, as a father, for God's sake. So it's a foundational thing, which once you relieve that inner stress and that conflict and that whole neurotic anxiety that comes along with drinking alcohol, once you release that, then that becomes the foundation for building everything else. It's virtually impossible to get to the best possible version of yourself if you're drinking alcohol or if you're taking other drugs. And once you do stop drinking alcohol, you release your mind. You take your mind out from underneath that fog. You take your mind out from underneath that confusion and that conflict and that anxiety. I mean, that anxiety causes a lot of different problems. I'll dig into that a little bit later, but everything that follows then follows because you've released that your mind, because you're starting to think clearly, because you're starting to move yourself forwards. I mean, again, go back to that first video that I made and look at me now, look at the way I'm acting, look at the way my appearance. I mean, the biggest part of this whole journey is always going to be on the inside. And I wish I could show you the changes that had happened there. Hopefully the changes come across a little bit in the way I am and the way you perceive me, but it's just a huge difference. It's a huge difference in everything that I do. It is the biggest and best single decision that I have ever made in my life. Two biggest parts of my life were having my kid and making the decision to stop drinking alcohol. They were the things that have changed me the most. But as a decision, quitting drinking alcohol is up there on the top, because I didn't make a decision to have Sean. That was just there. So let's look at some of the reality behind major change. There is going to be discomfort, no matter what way you look at this, because habits are all about comfort. Habits are all about settling yourself into that comfort zone. But the comfort zone is all about chaos. It's all about settling into something which is nothing really, because once you're in that comfort zone, and once you're in, especially the comfort zone where there's drugs involved, you get sucked in and your life becomes much more constricted, right? So discomfort is going to be a certainty in this journey. You're going to feel discomfort in so many different ways, but it's a decreasing discomfort. And one of the ways of looking at this is to look at your discomfort before and look at it afterwards. So how much discomfort are you going through now? How much discomfort are you going to go through if you don't stop drinking alcohol? We're going to cover that in the next video. And then take it from the perspective that you're stopping drinking alcohol, and how much discomfort are you going to go through now because of that, because you've stopped drinking alcohol. Like I said, that discomfort before, if you don't stop, is going to keep increasing. You're feeding the discomfort, you're feeding the anxiety, you're feeding the conflict. Once you stop the drinking, then that discomfort is not involved with alcohol anymore. I mean, you have to get rid of the habit, but that's a different thing. You hold the controls. You hold the discomfort dial, so you can turn it up or down depending on what way you look at it. It's all down to how you see things in your mind, the mindsets that you use, the thoughts that you have, and how you employ those thoughts in your actions going forwards. We talk about this all the time in positivity, perseverance, keeping your perspective in the right place, and above all, just being patient with the whole thing, that it is a journey. So it's a real opportunity for real change, for big change to happen. It's a growth opportunity. Again, we'll look at the before and after. Where are you going before? When I stopped drinking alcohol, I wasn't heading anywhere good. Everything was backwards. One step forwards, two steps back. That's where my journey was headed. But the reality is that even though you've got these opportunities for growth, you've got these opportunities for real change, the reality is that they are opportunities only. They won't just happen. You have to work at it. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm 6 months into this journey and nothing is happening," because you're not doing anything. You have to work at it. If you're not willing to put the work in, this is not a magic pill. So a lot of people have these big expectations about where they're going to go once they stop drinking alcohol, but it's just a foundational stone. So that's the reality of it. But when we're taking expectations, you also have to look at it from the perspective of that this is one of the biggest expressions of your growth, will be your growing expectations. And it's something I found out maybe 6, 7 months, 8 months after I'd stopped drinking alcohol, that what I expected of myself was a whole lot greater now that I stopped drinking alcohol than what I expected of myself on day one, or while I was leading up to making this decision. So we're talking here about working towards the best possible version of yourself versus the worst possible version of yourself. I'll talk a bit more about the worst possible version in a second, but this all takes work. It still takes work. You have to refuse to delude yourself about that magic bullet, that there is no magic bullet, and that just stopping drinking alcohol is not going to give you the magic bullet, just as alcohol itself wasn't a magic bullet for anything in your life. So there is a certain fear that's attached to stopping drinking alcohol, as well as a fear that is attached to drinking alcohol. You've got no more crutch to fall back on when you stop. But that worst possible version of yourself, that part of yourself that you're sinking down into as a drinker, that brings with it a lot of existential anxiety, a lot of angst. And I'm not talking just about the fact that you could die with this, or there's over 200 different illnesses that you could, conditions that you could get because of your drinking. I'm talking about that existential angst that lies all the time underneath the surface of you doing something or saying something which is going to have a humongous negative effect on your life. That's something that's going to ruin your reputation, something that's going to, it's just the repercussions of it are going to be so bad that it sort of screws around with you. I had a few of those in my life, luckily they weren't as existential as I thought they were, but they cause a constant neurotic anxiety to build up underneath, to grow underneath. And it's a subconscious thing that you don't think about. You're trying to push this down with the alcohol, but it's growing all the time. Another form of anxiety, I think, when people stop drinking alcohol most, or the thing that stops them from even contemplating quitting alcohol, is FOMO, fear of missing out. But when you think about this, what are you actually missing out on? The real missed opportunities, the real missed potential in life is always going to happen while you're drugged up, while you're feeding yourself a poison that prevents you and handicaps you from moving forwards in life. I hope I'm convincing you here of just the danger and the damage that is caused, not only physically to your body. Forget that. If it wasn't, if it was a perfectly happy thing that you did and it didn't cause you any physical harm, think about the time that it's causing. I get this all the time with people when they talk about marijuana. Marijuana doesn't cause any physical damage. That's an arguable statement at best, but it causes you a lot of missed opportunities, because when you're stoned, when you're drunk, when you're high, all of these things, you cannot do other things in your life. You cannot think properly. You can't think straight. So the best antidote for any fear is to take action, to move forwards, and to get about your business, what you want to do in life, to have those goals in your life. That's why we're always talking about that best possible version of yourself, because it's an overall goal that you can aim towards. Not very specific, but we grow into it, and we there's a lot of different goals within a goal that you are aiming towards. I mean, I can't tell you what the best possible version of you is, or the best possible version of your life, because I don't know. It's all up to you. The third part of this is transition. Transition is that period that we go through preparation, so you prepare for the journey, and then you have to go through a certain transition period where you're sort of in a no man's land. You're working on yourself. You're working at breaking apart the old habits. You're working at building the new things that you need, or at least starting those processes of building the new habits. You're starting that process in the transition period. So before you can really transform yourself, you've got to go through this transition. Part of this process of transition is where you've got to kill the old part off. The old part dies. You've got to allow that old part to die. There's an old saying, old habits die hard, but they do need to die. And old habits can be allowed to die. In order to replace, in order to have new habits come in, and for you to have those habits that are going to help you in the future instead of hinder you, you've got to replace the new with the old, right? And this is where dismantling comes in, which is a part of the transition process. You've got to ask yourself, do you want to be a drinker forever, even though you stop drinking alcohol, you stop the physical act of drinking alcohol? This is the AA mentality, where 20 years later, 30 years later, you're still talking about yourself as being an alcoholic. You're still associating yourself with the old behavior patterns, even though you haven't done it in so long, right? A lot of this is fear of missing out, or that one drink mentality. All I have to do is have that one drink and I'll be back to where I started from. If you don't want that, then you've got to dismantle the old habits. You've got to dismantle the old behaviors, and you've got to dismantle the old you. What consists of you, how you kept this, the thinking and the mindsets. And there's several different parts of this dismantling process, but it's, once you get into it, it's an easy, step by step. And again, it's leaving behind, you're dismantling the unhealthy ways of thinking, the unhealthy mindsets, the unhealthy spirit. That's part of the process that I really, I found very difficult to get away from. That, what I said earlier, that core feeling that I was an Irish man, and this is what Irish men do. This is what strong Irish men do. We go to the pub and we drink Guinness. So thank God I got rid of that. Another part of the transition process is disillusionment. And there's two parts of this. There's being disillusioned with the reality of change. So you're being disillusioned with your lack of progress. A lot of people get a few weeks into the journey and they think, well, why aren't I more ahead? Or you're disillusioned with yourself and with your past. You've got regrets about what you've done in the past, and you're disillusioned because you're having to think about these things. So there's a lot of different working parts that come around, but you're putting yourself into a position where you're much more capable of dealing with each of these things. And that's the best part. That's the beauty of the journey. That's the beauty of the wonder of the human mind, if you like. not to be getting too cliched here, but the clear mind, once you have that clear mind, you will have a clear set of ways to move forwards. Sometimes you've got to allow the time for the new changes to kick in, right? To take effect. This takes time, right? It takes effort, it takes patience, perseverance, positivity. It takes that maintaining an eye onto your perspective on where you want to go, focusing your mind on where you want to go. And the final part of this whole process is moving over into transformation. For me, that's the best part. It's always the best part with people when they finally are able to say to themselves, and everyone gets to this stage, you want to get to it sooner rather than later, but depends on the person. It's where they are eventually able to say that to themselves, I'm so happy now that I know I'm never going to drink alcohol again. I never want alcohol in my life again. That's one of the best parts of this program. And it really frees you up to move on. It frees you up that's when the conflict really does disappear. You've got no more conflict. You've got no more brain fog. You've got less anxiety. You've got more abilities in your thinking. And as I said, get into that stage of, if you want to get to that stage of a non-drinker, you're always going to be to have that in your past, right? The alcohol person. So you're never going to get to the stage where you're a pure non-drinker, as if you've never drank alcohol before. Alcohol and everything that you've done with alcohol, every drop of alcohol that you've ever put into your body is still going to be part of you, or part of your past. But there is a benefit that you can take from that. There's a benefit from all this change effort. The parts of your brain that are responsible for change, for moving yourself forwards. Like I said, this is not an easy journey. Once it's the quitting drinking alcohol. Once you get a grip on that, and that's just one part of it. Get rid of the alcohol, stop drinking the alcohol, then you move on, you change everything else. Once you get your eyes set on that target, that these are two different scenarios. These are two different processes. Stop drinking alcohol is one process, and that's over as soon as you make that decision to stop drinking alcohol. Finished. You've stopped. You don't drink anymore. Then you move on. You change the things that have been keeping you as a drinker for all these years, right? That's when you really start to benefit from the change process. So before we finish up here, I just want to talk a little bit about the simplicity of it. Close up a bit with, this is taking the journey forwards. You keep things simple by taking it one step at a time, bit by bit, right? All you can do is take one step after the other. Take small changes, slow and steady growth. You can only ever do your best. You're not in competition here with anyone else. You should always be in competition only with yourself. And it's trying to extract the best, trying to extract yourself to your own potential, to push yourself out to get to that potential. There's no guarantees in life with anything, right? You have to be happy with that. I think hard work in the right direction usually pays off. And the best thing about being successful in this, for me, is that simplicity of things. Keeping positive, having that perseverance that you're pushing through and growing these things, trying to be more patient in life with yourself, with other people, with the process, and keeping your eye on the ball, saying to yourself, well, this is where I want to go. This is my perspective. This is my focus. Get those basic things right in life, and I think everything else is going to take care of themselves. Like I said, there is no guarantees, but I think once you're on that road and you're pushing yourself in the right direction, you'll get there. But just stopping drinking alcohol is not a magic bullet. It's a great start, but after you stop drinking alcohol, you have to. It takes a lot of thinking, so you have to think about things and then think about things and think more. A lot of experimentation. So you experiment with the way that you relax, you experiment with other ways of dealing with your anxiety, which will be a lot lower, by the way. You experiment with ways of socializing. So there's all this experimentation that you're going to do, all this thinking that you're going to do, and you will be frustrated along this journey because the first iteration of your experimentation is not going to, may well work out well for you, and fair play. But more than likely, you're going to try different things and be frustrated, but you will get there. And it will be a lot healthier, much more satisfied, contented life that you'll be living. Looking back on yourself. And I think a part of this whole journey also for me was looking at my values and looking at where my old values had led me, and starting to either grow some of the values that I had or thought I had, build those values, or create new values that were going to help me to continue on this journey and to be true to myself, and to believe in myself, and to grow my own self-esteem, to have that self-confidence in the fact that I could do whatever I wanted to do, to grow my expectations, like I said earlier. And in truth, it was the best decision I ever made. I wish I'd done it sooner, but that's just the way it is. It's one decision that made a huge difference in my life. And it hasn't been without challenges, and your journey will not be without challenges. But the most pressure that you will find will be on yourself in order to do well, to achieve things for yourself, not for anyone else, but to get to that level of self-confidence that you want to get to achieve the things that you want to do, not external things, but focus on your internals, focus on controlling your emotions, trying to push yourself towards those happy emotions, get your thinking right. As I say, my life, I'm not looking to be going around with a stupid grin on my face all the time. It's nice to have that. It's nice to laugh. I love laughing, but I like the contentment of it. I like getting up every morning and being excited about life again, which I didn't before. So it's a good part. So just to close things off here, most of this is simple. Keep the alcohol out of your mouth. Make that one simple decision to stop drinking alcohol, and change everything outside of that. So you gradually unpicking all the habits. You're changing your mindsets. You're changing the way you do things. You're experimenting. You're thinking, and you're on a new journey. And think about that new journey. You're facing forwards into a new journey. This is something which will benefit you for the rest of your life. Right? Face forward. You need to be realistic about the time frame. You need to be realistic how long it's going to take you to achieve the things that you want to achieve, right? Step by step. Just focus on the targets that you want to achieve. Focus on the goal. Put in the hard work. Have patience. Be positive. Persevere. And look at things with that perspective. As you move into this journey, as we said before, you'll start laddering up. You'll start getting to see a much broader perspective. There is no magic bullet in this. Transition is going to bring you ups and downs. It's going to bring you a lot of challenges and frustrations, but it will eventually bring you into that transformation, right? There's always going to be a lot happening with any major change that you have in life, but it's really beneficial for you to have a guide. This is why I'm making these videos, is to try and help you as much as I can. To give you that head start, but nobody can tell you the direction that you should go in. That's all down to you. So, all right, I'm going to finish up here. The next video, we're going to talk about two concepts that can really help you to solidify your resolve in this whole change process. The first one is called the Dickens Second Chance, and the other one is called the Circles of Influence. See you in the next video. Bye now.